So I'm going to make a prediction and then I'm going to tell you why I think what I do. So my prediction is fairly soon the US will start a war with Iran. And then they will blame Iran for starting the war in the first place. Now my reasons for this is, first and foremost, you have John Bolton as part of the White House. Now John Bolton has never met a war he didn't have a raging hard on for. This man is as chicken hawky as it gets. He's an absolute scumbag, and he would love to send every man, woman and child in America with a gun over to a foreign country to start a war. That is who John Bolton is. He was pissed off that the coup that the US was backing in Venezuela didn't pan out the way that he wanted to. And he's been pushing for a war with Iran for a long time, long before the Trump administration. I believe he was doing this all the way back in the early Bushes. So that's what he's doing. That's who's whispering in Donald Trump's ear. A prick who wants to murder more people. Now, then we have things like the US is gearing up or proposing to send over 120,000 people to the border. So straight away, they're goading Iran. Now, I have to make this clear. I'm not a fan of the Iranian government. There is a plethora of issues. It's not a good place to be in at all. But that isn't justification to start a war just because you have an issue with the government. Or in Trump's case, Trump hasn't got an issue with the government. Trump doesn't even know what his own government does. But there's no justifiable reason to go over there, other than to provoke Iran into doing something. Now, earlier on in the Trump presidency, they pulled out of the Iranian deal, citing that it was a bad deal for the US and the Iranians were taking the piss. Well, the Iranians hadn't done anything to violate the terms and conditions of the Iranian deal. And it was not a bad deal for the US. It was a great deal for everyone except for Iran. And yet Iran was still going for it. But then America turns around and does something even more provocative, because they're warhawks. And that is, they've started to sanction or threaten sanctions to allies who are still abiding by the Iranian guidelines, which is us. Essentially, they're saying, hey, if you still do business with Iran, we're going to sanction you. Now that is another problem, because now it's essentially attacking Iran's economy, when in the case of this, they've done nothing wrong. Over and over again, it's provocation and provocation and provocation. And now wanting to send over 120,000 troops to the Gulf. I mean, realistically, how many times can you get punched in the face before you fight back? And that's exactly what's happening. And that's what people like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, both prominent Trump administration appointees, are doing. They are trying to start another conflict like Iraq. And again, a lot of people in America think that Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11. He had nothing to do with 9/11. But just with Iraq, close to 1 million civilians died. Close to 1 million civilians were murdered. Now, Iran is about 4 times bigger than Iraq. And Iraq was a fucking cluster shit show. Nothing good came from that at all. Not one goddamn thing. Especially when you look at the state of Iraq today as to where it was before the US and the UK, because we always get dragged along with it, invaded. Now I bring this up first and foremost because it's important to call out bullshit when it happens. But secondly, because we are going to get dragged along with it. Brexiteers love to point out that we have no sovereignty within the EU, which is absolute bullshit. But we have no sovereignty when it comes to America doing what they want to do. We didn't have to go in with Bush with the Iraqi war, yet we chose to. We didn't have to do a number of things, but we do them because America tells us to. And certainly with Theresa May in charge, Theresa May, who bends over backwards to please the man baby that is Donald Trump, she would absolutely go in with America on this fabricated conflict, this fabricated war. And then we've got, if Theresa May steps down, well, who is going to replace her? Because a lot of the Conservative Party, a lot of the Tories actually like Donald Trump. So certainly if we get someone like Boris Johnson, for example, well, Boris Johnson is a huge Trump cheerleader. He would absolutely back the Trump administration into a war with Iran. And again, I'm going to bring this up. Iran is 4 times bigger than Iraq. Iran has an actual legitimate army. So it wouldn't just be 1 million civilians murdered. There would be so much death because Donald Trump is a fucking moron and is getting played by people like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo. There is no grounds to do anything that America is doing right now. So my prediction is that relatively soon a war will start with Iran. The UK will get dragged along with it, and then the media will report that Iran started the war. In reality, it was America.